hear nothing. You want to hear Toot Toot Tootsie? All right, hold on.
Episode 1 previously covered Fred and Ginger's lives and careers from their births through 1934, covering their vaudeville and Broadway careers. Episode 2 covered their Hollywood careers from 1929 until right before their first pairing in Flying Down to Rio in 1933. This was mostly Ginger, who appeared in 26 movies and shorts. Fred appeared in 1 movie. This and the next episode covers their history-making period as a team, 9 movies over 6 years. These 9 movies, plus their reunion movie a decade later, are slightly less than 10% of their combined 104 total movies, but with these they totally changed how Hollywood did musicals. Their 10 movies together are Flying Down to Rio, 1933, The Gay Divorcee, 1934, Roberta, 1935, Top Hat, also 1935, Follow the Fleet, 1936, Swing Time, also 1936, Shall We Dance, 1937, Carefree, 1938, The Story of Vernon and Irene Castle, 1939, and their reunion 10 years later, The Barclays of Broadway, 1949. This also covers the 10 other movies Ginger and 1 other movie Fred appeared in solo during their partnership. Their reunion movie a decade later will show later in its historical sequence. In this video, most movies will be quickly referenced. For in-depth coverage of all their movies, there are 3 playlists. The complete Fred and Ginger movies, songs, and dances covers their 10 movies together, and Fred and Ginger's 2 playlists, all their movies outside the partnership. Fred had signed to do RKO's big-budget entry into musicals, but because of production delays, he was lent out to MGM to do Dancing Lady with Joan Crawford and Clark Gable. It was a big hit, the 7th highest revenue of the year, and even though Fred's role was very small, just 2 song and dance scenes, it gave Fred great exposure. Most people had never seen Fred before. All his previous recent work was on Broadway. Ginger had been freelancing through the studios for an incredible 18 appearances since mid-1931, refusing all long-term contracts, a very rare and daring career choice. Over this period, RKO had given her some of her best roles, and now Ginger was on an extended 3-movie deal with them, including a big raise and an option for a long-term contract. The events that led up to their first movie together make no sense to me. Ballet-trained Dorothy Jordan, who had been Adele's understudy in Funny Face, was to be Fred's dancing partner. She then dropped out of the movie to go on her honeymoon with producer Marion C. Cooper. He disrupts his own movie. She gives up her first big-time role instead of putting off the wedding for a few months. I think perhaps that was the cover story. Ginger was on an extended 3-movie deal with RKO, and I believe had already won the contest to get Ginger to sign long-term. Her recent movies had done very well, so it made sense to put their rising star into their first big-budget musical. In her bio, Lucille Ball wrote, Fred asked for Ginger, having helped her in New York with some of her dance routines in Girl Crazy. Ginger said in a 1937 Family Circle interview, when the picture was well underway, Fred sent for me. He wanted me in the dance sequences. In Fred's bio, though, Fred said he was informed Ginger would be his partner in the movie on his 3rd day on the set. As happens so often, conflicting accounts from different people. However it came about, nobody knew they were about to make movie history. Fred and Ginger's first movie together was RKO's big-budget entry into musicals, Flying Down to Rio. Or should I say Ginger and Fred's? She got the higher billing for this one, and in some posters for the next movie. The leads in the movie were the gorgeous Mexican aristocrat Dolores Del Rio and Gene Raymond, but their performances are underwhelming. Fred and Ginger had third and fourth billing, or fourth and fifth. Gotta love the absolute lack of consistency in this industry. Yet they stole the show, but nobody realized it at first. The supporting cast of comedians was an important part of the series, and Eric Blore was in 5 of their 10 movies, more than anyone else. Franklin Pangborn was in 1 other movie with them, but was in 5 other Ginger movies. Ginger gets a nice wisecracking intro at the start of the movie, and then was cute and sexy in a song in their only pre-code movie together.
I like music, I like it old, I like it new, but it makes me do the things I never should do.
Fred displayed his dancing skills in a solo, also to Music Makes Me. And sings the title song, Flying Down to Rio, which hit number 6 on the Billboard Top 100.
Where the lovely Brazilian ladies will catch your eye by the light of the million stars in the evening sky. My Rio, Rio by the sea, flying down to Rio where there's rhythm and rhyme.
Fred is the lead sidekick, so he has many more lines than Ginger. Ginger is also in this crazy long scene with dancers on planes. This is their only movie where Fred and Ginger's characters are not romantically involved, just members of a band. This is also their only pre-code movie, so the only one with sexual innuendos, revealing clothing on Ginger, and totally transparent on the ladies. One more thing. Fred and Ginger got to do one dance scene, the Carioca.
Just how much does it cost to get home from here?
Home, nothing. I'd like to try this thing just once. Come on, honey.
We'll show them a thing or 3.
Flying Down to Rio was a financial success, earning a profit of $480,000, and the public loved it. Critical reviews were mixed. The New York Times called it a thoroughly enjoyable entertainment. Variety complained it's slow and lacks laughs to the point where average business seems its groove, but praised Fred. He is distinctly likable on the screen, the mic is kind to his voice, and as a dancer, he remains in a class by himself. Without 20/20 hindsight, people in the movie industry have no idea how what they have created will be received. Some thought this movie was okay, nothing special. Others feared it was going to be a bomb.
Because we thought this was going to be the bomb of all bombs. And then about a year later, I was in New York, and I was in a cab going downtown, and I passed in front of Radio City Music Hall. And I looked up on the marquee, and it said, Flying Down to Rio with Dolores Del Rio and Gene Raymond. And I thought, oh, not Radio City Music Hall. And I looked down, and there was a line formed at the box office. It went all the way around the block, clear up to Fifth Avenue, around Fifth Avenue.
Nobody said this was a great movie. They flocked to it to see one dance scene like they had never seen before. RKO had a new sensation on their hands.
It was after the Carioca, the solo part, and the audience cheered and applauded. I'd never heard applause in a movie theater before. And right away, I think it was in Pomona, the small town. right away the studio knew we've got something big.
The public raved about their performance. RKO even put out posters highlighting the third and fourth billed actors. To the modern viewer, it is a nice dance, but hardly remarkable. Many of us have seen Fred and Ginger dance before, and better dances. The impact must be viewed in historical perspective. In 1933, nobody had ever seen something quite like this. To understand, review some movie dance scenes from before flying down to Rio. Fred surely thought the quickly put-together dance was nothing special compared to what he had done with Adele, so he was stunned when Douglas Fairbanks Jr. said to him, "What do you mean by revolutionizing the movie industry? I've just seen Flying Down to Rio, and you've got something absolutely new. It's terrific." It would be nice if RKO could take credit for this, as all part of a master plan. No. RKO was a wonderful madhouse, a tiny little studio compared to the big studios that somehow managed to produce many all-time great movies. But that is a story for another time. Many studios barely survived the stock market crash of 1929, including RKO. But barely. In January 1933, both RKO and Paramount were forced into receivership, from which the latter would emerge in mid-1935. RKO would not until 1940. Accountants are not very well adapted to the risks and rewards of making motion pictures, and their interference really hurts sometimes. Ginger states in her biography, "During my 7-year contract at RKO, there were 7 different studio presidents. You literally had to check the name on the door so as not to call the new boss by the former boss's name." David O. Selznick, the genius, ran RKO for only 15 months, greatly improving the studio, and laid the groundwork for the greatest period in RKO history. He signed the unusual actress Katharine Hepburn, saw enough in Fred to sign him regardless of a poor screen test, and laid the groundwork for RKO winning the sweepstakes to sign Ginger long-term. He also brought in much other talent. And then Selznick got in a battle over creative control with the new boss and was gone. One can only wonder about the heights RKO could have reached under his control. In a few years, he would produce the greatest and most profitable movie of all time, Gone with the Wind. A few words about Hermes Pan are fitting here. In reality, the greatest dance team in history was Fred, Ginger, and Pan, and it started with Flying Down to Rio. As stated in episode 1, Ginger befriended Pan when they both had their Broadway debut in Top Speed. Now Pan, an assistant dance director, was given an assignment that would change his life.
My first assignment, he said, Fred Astaire is up on stage 8, and said, would you go up there and said, see if you could do any help him, It was frightened me to death because even then Fred was a big internationally known star. And so he showed me this fantastic routine that wasn't finished. And right here I'm stuck for a step. I need some sort of a... And for some reason something clicked in my mind and I remembered a certain break. Well, do it again. I said, and he said, that's great. So he used it.
Fred and Pan worked together wonderfully over the 10 movies, were inseparable. First they would work out the dance scenes in detail. Then Pan would dance Ginger's role to perfect the scene. Fred insisted on 6 weeks of dance practice before anyone else came on the set. Ginger was always working on other movies, so when she arrived, Pan would train Ginger on her dance steps. Then the actual shooting could begin.
Patty and Pan, we always called him Pan, not Hermes, would cook up numbers together, and they bounced off each other really, really well.
Fred told a funny story about studio workers becoming all flustered and embarrassed when coming upon Fred dancing with Hermes playing Ginger's role. Pan's contribution was more than all that. From so many anecdotal stories, he was the glue that held the team together, the perfect mediator between the two, because he was trusted, even loved, by both. As she had been doing all along, Ginger never stopped working. At the same time she started flying down to Rio, she was still making Sitting Pretty for Paramount Pictures. The lots were right next to each other, and Ginger rode a bike back and forth between the two. I don't care how close. Could you ever imagine a big Hollywood star doing this now? There is so much to cover in their lives and careers, I have to break it into sections. And my Fred and Ginger, friends, lovers, or both video covers their personal relationship thoroughly. Here you will get a quicker version. Covered in the first episode, Fred and Ginger dated back in 1930 in New York City when they were both appearing on Broadway. I theorized quite a bit. Ginger ran off to Hollywood for a 3-movie deal with RKO. Fred sent her a lovely letter, but she did not respond. When I theorized, she dumped Fred. Fred then met his future wife, Phyllis, and they were married right before they came out to Hollywood. Upon their meeting on the set, Fred's memory is all sunshine. Being old friends, we both had a good laugh when we met that first day of rehearsals, and then we reminisced about the casino in Central Park and the New York stage, and the fun started right there. Ginger has a much different memory. She seems to have been very sensitive, long remembering slights, though to her credit she never seems to hold a grudge, at least for very long. She wrote, "Fred looked the same but acted differently. He was not as open, far more formal. I felt like I didn't even know him. As if to explain his behavior, he said, 'I'm married now.' From what I've seen, Ginger is one of those kissy-huggy people, both to men and women. I think perhaps he was setting a new boundary between them, so Phyllis would not be upset when the three of them were together. He had his reasons. After around 2 years of dating, in 1933, Fred signed the contract to do Flying Down to Rio, and again asked Phyllis to marry him. Again she was hesitant. Fred said he would go to Hollywood to do that first movie, and then they will get married. Phyllis said, "No, that's not good. If you go away from me to Hollywood, you'll start running around with some of those girls out there. And whether you do or not, I'd always think you did. So we'd better get married right now, as soon as possible." When Fred recounts what Phyllis would say, he always seems to think it was wonderful. But for this reader, and I assume many others, some of these quotes are alarming. This is one of those. She is admitting she is very jealous and insecure. But all that matters is what Fred thought, and to him she was perfect. Time would prove her jealousy and insecurity would become a real problem early in his partnership with Ginger, at least according to Ginger, but Fred never mentions any of those things. What makes this odd at first is just before this Phyllis had gone away for months to visit relatives in South Carolina, leaving Fred alone in New York City with all those actresses around him. That did not seem to bother her. The only difference between Broadway and Hollywood was that Ginger was in Hollywood. From all I have read, Fred is always a very honorable man. I assume at some point he was asked about his relationship with Ginger, and he told Phyllis the truth, if possibly a toned-down version. He had dated Ginger for a while. Whatever the rationale, it seemingly did not work. Ginger finally met Phyllis a few weeks later. Ginger wrote, "When we were introduced, she was a bit standoffish and greeted me as though she really didn't know who I was. I learned later that that was the way she affected everyone. As was Ginger's way, and I believe in respect for Fred, she also said, I think she was somewhat insecure in her new role as a famous dancer's wife. Now there is an understatement.
This was an early warning of what was to come. According to Ginger, Phyllis's jealousy and insecurity would cause issues during her partnership with Fred. It is understandable for Phyllis to have issues with Fred making 9 of his first 11 movies with his beautiful and sexy ex-girlfriend. The first issue that arose was Ginger's dancing. Later in life, Fred said, Ginger had never danced with the partner before flying down to Rio. She faked it an awful lot. She couldn't tap, and she couldn't do this and that. But Ginger had style and talent, and improved as she went along. She got so that after a while everyone else who danced with me looked wrong. Only the first part of that statement held true in 1933.
It wasn't just the dancing. Ginger never received training in dancing, singing, or acting, except for on-the-job training. Her career was so unusual, she won a contest and afterwards immediately starred in vaudeville. She never stopped working, and her first traveling, so she never really had time for training. The big divide between the industry and their viewing public was never more apparent. Ginger was beloved by the public, but the criticism by some professionals, even today, never stopped. I think jealousy plays a part in this. She never trained like we did, but she got to dance with Fred? And Fred was the consummate, heavily trained professional. For the record, the 3 books on their dancing by dance critics, starting with the Arlene Croce's The Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers book, are very supportive of Ginger's contributions to the dance scenes. Her figure, her flexibility, and especially the acting and emotions she brought to these dances. Ginger understandably became very defensive about this subject.
I didn't take acting, I didn't take dancing, I didn't take singing, and then, I did all those things. So sue me.
In time, the criticism softened, so Ginger was never trained in a school. Or was she? In reality, Ginger was the only student of the Fred Astaire Hermes Pan Dance School, 6 rigorous weeks of dance training before each movie. Of course she learned, and she learned from the master. Pity she could not put aside her justified anger at the critics and give these 2 credit. Ginger says she was the only one at RKO that could dance with Fred. You gotta love her courage and confidence. Dance with the greatest dancer on the planet, even though I never had any dance training, even though I never did this kind of dancing before? No problem. Just show me what you want me to do. This must have driven Fred nuts.
Some claim it was at this time Ginger was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, but this is disputed by some very knowledgeable fans. Ginger was devoutly religious and a Christian Scientist, a religion that avoids modern medicine. What supports the diabetes claim, to me, is Ginger's rapid weight gains and losses in the period leading up to this. It must have troubled her terribly, but it ended here. I theorize Fred's exhausting dance practice routine was exercise like Ginger had never done before, and exercise is excellent at controlling diabetes. Exercise became a regular part of Ginger's life. I find it amazing and a testament to her will and determination that she worked at a frenetic pace and never let this slow her down.
At first, I had a bad impression about Phyllis, not from Ginger's comments. She has her own prejudices, but from Fred. There are a few comments by both that leave me stunned, and this is one. Phyllis went to answer the front doorbell. She returned in a rather frightened state. She said, "There's a dreadful man at the front door without a shirt on who says he knows your sister and that he's just been playing tennis. He wants to see you." The dreadful is not a typo. That is how Fred wrote it. Phyllis had a speech impediment. The intruder was David Niven, to become a lifelong friend, and Fred said he had us in stitches the entire time, so obviously Phyllis got over her scare. Still, of all the descriptions I could think of regarding Niven, dreadful is not one of them, and I cannot picture him doing something that so frightened Phyllis. Besides, he said he was friendly with Adele. Fred, of course, thinks this is fine, or else he would not have put it in his book. It seems to me to be really odd behavior, backing up some of Ginger's later statements. Fred went to London to honor his pre-commitment to do Gay Divorce, and it had a very successful run. This was Fred's last stage performance. Now another important character enters the story. With the surprising success of Flying Down to Rio, new studio head Pandro S. Berman flew to London to see the play, to determine if this would be the first big Fred and Ginger movie. Yep, number 3 already for Fred and Ginger. But this one stuck around and was a crucial part of their success. He produced their next 8 movies together, and other movies they did, and led the most successful period in RKO history. In between Flying Down to Rio and Gay Divorcee, Ginger appeared in 4 movies, all released within a month. In Upperworld, simple, naive Ginger is a burlesque dancer who begins an affair with a very rich, powerful, and lonely man. Ginger had been in Gold Diggers of 1933 with Warren Williams, who had a nice run in the 30s when sound began with his deep, rich voice. Mary Astor was a major star in the silence and transitioned to sound perfectly. Ginger plays a sweet, but not very bright, burlesque dancer under the thumb of a gangster. Williams plays a railroad magnate and a devoted father who feels ignored and unloved by his wife, Mary Astor. After a chance meeting when Williams' boat saves a drowning Ginger, a lonely Williams sees a billboard for Ginger's show. Going inside, Ginger pays attention to them as part of her act, where she is very sweet and sexy.
When you see a lady shake that talcum, you might guess she's either waiting for a man or she's been in distress. If you see your Romeo sitting in the bullhead row, do a little hidey-ho, just shake your powder puff. When you're on a sailor's knee, take a little tip from me. You can save your dignity, just shake your powder puff. If the brace ain't coming right and you're slipping just a mine, paint your body lily white and shake your powder puff. When you see a lady shake that talcum, you might guess she's either waiting for a man or she's in distress.
Williams visits Ginger's dressing room afterwards, and she goes to dinner with him on his lonely birthday. He makes it clear he is married, and the affair begins. Her boyfriend and gangster manager, performed by J. Carroll Naish, demands Ginger set up Williams for blackmail. Ginger half-heartedly agrees, but in the end, this sweet, naive girl falls in love with Williams because he treats her nice. Naish makes his blackmail move, William fights back, and Ginger is shot dead in the crossfire trying to protect Williams, the only time her character ever dies in a movie. In finishing school, Ginger returns to her familiar role of streetwise, wisecracking tough girl, with a heart of gold and a good friend. Frances D. had a nice career, with her breakout role in 1930's Playboy of Paris. For the most part, she played supporting roles. Bruce Cabot is most famous for King Kong. Otherwise, he had a successful career as a supporting actor, including appearing in 11 John Wayne movies. Beulah Bondi is my favorite character actress of this period. Very versatile, here she plays the domineering head of a posh school for girls. She would be in another movie with Ginger later on.
And if we're on our honor, I think honor? You're supposed to do exactly as you please in this old ladies' home for nice young gals. Just don't get caught, that's all.
Cabot rescues Dee from an embarrassing situation, and they strike up a romance. When Dee gets in trouble, Ginger is there to help her out. Ginger's role is not that big, but she sparkles in every scene she is in. Change of Heart is Ginger's best performance of this period, and she sparkles in a very unusual role. This was the last of 12 very successful pictures that Janet Gaynor and Charles Farrell starred together in as a romantic couple. Ginger plays a bad girl for the first time since her first movie, and Ginger is very good at being very bad. This movie was a big hit. Janet Gaynor is a very good actress, starting in The Silence and winning the first Oscar Best Actress. She was again nominated in 1937's A Star is Born, and then she retired in 1939. I was confused watching this scene. Ginger looks like a giant. She is only 5'4". That's because Gaynor is only 4'9". Ginger and Gaynor really hit it off, became close friends, and Gaynor was a bridesmaid in Ginger's second wedding to Lou Ayres. The successful part of Charles Farrell's career was entirely in his 12 movies with Gaynor, both in The Silence and transitioning to sound. Ginger says in her biography, people thought Gaynor and Farrell were really in love, but they were just friends, maybe had a thing for each other at one time. Ginger said people saw her and Fred the same way. I found this confusing and factually incorrect. Farrell was nuts for Gaynor. They dated seriously for the first 3 years, and he begged her to marry him. She said no, he was too much of a party boy for the reserved Gaynor. Ginger used this as proof that actors who appear to love each other can just be friends. It seems to prove the opposite. James Dunn had a nice career, including singing and dancing with Shirley Temple in her first 3 movies. But he had a severe drinking problem, and his career crashed. Then he won Best Supporting Actor in 1945's A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, one of my favorite movies, as an irresponsible, drunken father. This was right before Shirley Temple's career took off, right after her breakout role in 1934's Stand Up and Cheer. She has a brief appearance in this movie. Soon Temple would be the top box office champion for 4 straight years, from 1935 through 1938. She would appear again with Ginger in 1945's I'll Be Seeing You. This movie also has a connection to one of the 3 first child stars, baby Marie Osborne. When Ginger was 5, her mother Leela was a scriptwriter for Osborne, who appeared in 29 movies and shorts between 1915 and 1919. Now she was a stand-in for Ginger. She ended her career as a costumer in the movies. It's a story about 4 friends graduating college together and moving to New York in search of fame and fortune. Really, it's a story about a love quadrangle, kinda. Dunn loves Gaynor, Gaynor loves Farrell, Farrell loves Ginger, and Ginger loves Dunn and Farrell and every other man, and wants them all to love her. Her character is bizarrely narcissistic, and Ginger plays it great.
Well, of course, I'm crazy about Chris, but it's Mac I love.
Afraid you're going to have to make up your mind sometime, dear.
Well, I can't help it if that's the way I feel, can I?
Ginger is ruthless in advancing her career, endlessly flirty with all men, and totally callous in her treatment of Gaynor. She goes off to Hollywood to marry the rich producer, and Farrell becomes very sick, but is nursed back to health by Gaynor. Farrell tells Gaynor he loves her, and only now does Gaynor reveal to Farrell she has always loved him. They get married. Ginger returns from Hollywood unmarried and, not knowing Farrell and Gaynor got married, declares she will marry Farrell. Even when she knows they are married, she still goes after Farrell.
Well, why can't I see Chris occasionally?
Because he's my husband, and I love him.
So do I. I wrote you that before you married him.
So you get him away from me if you can.
Chris is coming here to lunch. So if he goes on that weekend, you win.
Isn't very businesslike, is it?
You're all the party I want, Chris.
You love me a little, Chris.
You used to. I mean, you haven't forgotten that we... Oh, Chris, you still do a little, don't you? What are you thinking about?
Nothing.
It's Catherine, isn't it?
Yes. I'm late. I'll miss my train.
Oh, please, Chris. Listen.
Ginger's final movie of this period was 20 Million Sweethearts, starring Dick Powell, Pat O'Brien, and Ginger. Ginger had already been in 2 blockbuster movies with Dick Powell, 42nd Street and Gold Diggers of 1933. He had an interesting career. He did almost 24 musicals for Warner Brothers in the 30s, and then his career crashed. In 1944, he reinvented himself as a tough but good detective, starting with playing Philip Marlowe. Later, he hosted an award-winning television dramatic anthology show, The Dick Powell Theater. Pat O'Brien was one of the great character actors, part of Hollywood's Irish Mafia, and appeared with Cagney in 9 movies. He could play priests, soldiers, or fast-talking con men. He had a small role with Ginger in Honor Among Lovers, but had his breakout role in his next movie, The Front Page. He continued appearing in movies and television until the end of his life.
Is my baby got rhythm? Tell me, is it hot rhythm? Is my baby out for no good?
Now, I'm not bragging, but it's understood that everything I do, I sure do good. How am I doing? Hey, hey, tweet, 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 twat, twow.
They strike up a romance. Powell sings The Flying Trapeze in his audition and is rejected. Later, they all scheme together to get Powell another shot, and he becomes a star when he sings the beautiful I'll String Along With You. Ginger pretends to faint when she goes to sing the song, and O'Brien slides Powell into the opening, his big chance. He has one great voice. They announce their engagement, so the studio demands O'Brien wreck their relationship with rumors of his cheating on Ginger, and it works. Furious, Powell quits the station, and his career collapses. O'Brien wants to repair what he has done, admits his guilt to Ginger, and gets her to help. Powell gets his shot, but chokes when singing the song, lacking confidence. Ginger, there for her man, picks up the song for him, and he rushes over to her.
You may not be an angel.
Oh, you may not be an angel.
But still I'm sure you'll do.
Oh, but still I'm sure you'll do.
So until the day that one comes along, I'll string along with you.
By now, the surprising reaction to Flying Down to Rio launched the dream team of Fred and Ginger, 10 months later, into top billing in a big-budget musical, The Gay Divorcee. Notice at the top of the poster, the king and queen of the Carioca. And, at least on this poster, Ginger had top billing for the last time. Ginger finally signed a long-term contract with RKO. She had freelanced through the studios for an amazing 23 appearances since 1931. RKO had long treated her better, gave her better roles than any other studio, so this is no surprise. I wonder how much of her decision was affected by Fred having signed, and the opportunity to do a big-budget musical with him. It opens with Fred, a famous dancer, and Edward Everett Horton forgetting their wallets, so Fred has to dance for his dinner. An important part of this successful series of movies was the comedians, and Edward Everett Horton was great in 3 of them, starting here. In a two-become common plotline, Fred meets Ginger, Fred immediately falls for Ginger, Fred aggravates Ginger, and blows his chances.
Porter! Porter!
Can I be of any assistance?
Well, yes, my aunt is in the inspector's office. Would you call her for me?
You know, a third party might spoil this.
Porter! Oh, Porter!
Oh, Porter! Porter!
Fred tears Ginger's dress, so he lends Ginger his overcoat. Fred hoped to meet Ginger again when she returned his coat, and when that does not happen, his single-minded pursuit of Ginger begins. The other common plot line starting here is mistaken identity. Ginger is an abandoned wife and wants a divorce. Of course, Horton is a lawyer. He sets up a phony tryst between Ginger and what they call a co-respondent, and in all the confusion, Ginger thinks Fred is playing that role.
Besides Horton, the three other comedians adding laughter throughout are Alice Brady, in her only appearance in the series, Eric Rhodes, who also appears in Top Hat, and of course Eric Blore. Rhodes, born in the Midwest, impersonated an Italian character and so infuriated Mussolini, the movies were banned in Italy. Upon deciding he will search for Ginger, Fred sings and then dances to A Needle in a Haystack.
It's just like looking for a needle in a haystack, searching for a moonbeam in the blue. Still, I've got to find you.
Search he does, and does find her once, a charming scene where Fred offers Ginger refreshments and marriage. Unknowns to each other, they all go off to a seaside resort for the phony tryst. Horton does a cute song and dance number with 17-year-old Betty Grable. Betty Grable started real young, lied about her age, and had minor parts in movies at age 13 in 1930. Her breakout role was in 1940's Down Argentine Way. She was on the Moneymaker poll from 41 to 52 and hit number 1 in 1943. She was a famous World War II pinup girl. When Ginger relinquished her highest-paid actor in America crown, it was Betty who took the top spot in 1947. In this heavily modified version of the play, they kept only one song, and thankfully they did, the great Cole Porter's beautiful Night and Day. Porter had 4 Oscar-nominated Best Songs. The classic Night and Day was not one of them, because it was first in a play. No part of the Oscars is nuttier than composers and writers. Explain some other time. But this is why so many of the greatest movie songs are ignored by the Oscars.
Said that Fred Astaire may have introduced more standards than any singer of the same period.
Again, I cannot cover everything here, so I cover Fred's amazing career on the Billboard Top 100 in the 1930s in my video, Fred Astaire, Huge Star on the Radio. His Night and Day, released when the play was running, was the number 1 song of all of 1932. I will mention song rankings as we go along.
Night and day, you are the one, whether near to me or far, it's no matter, darling, where you are, I think of you. Night and day.
Another common plotline. Every time Fred softens Ginger's resistance, it all falls apart. Either he says or does something stupid, or, in this case, it's not even his fault. Ginger, now believing he is the co-respondent for the phony tryst, is again furious with him. When Rhodes, the real co-respondent, walks into the hotel room, they straighten it all out. With matters settled, they have to wait out the evening for this legal maneuver. The band below starts to play, leading to the big dance scene of the movie, The Continental. By big I mean 16.5 minutes long, the longest dance scene ever until the big ballet scene in An American in Paris. The song is sung beautifully by Ginger, but also by Eric Rhodes and Lillian Miles. It is danced beautifully by Fred and Ginger, but also by a large ensemble in a Busby Berkeley style of quick cuts. Way too long for my taste, but when Fred and Ginger dance, it is great.
It's something daring, the Continental, a way of dancing that's really ultra new. It's very subtle, the Continental, because it does what you want it to do. Your lips whisper so tenderly, her eyes and fancy your song. It's continental, it's continental.
Ginger gets her divorce, and they celebrate with a nice little closing dance. The movie was a financial and professional success, Oscar-nominated Best Picture, and earning the first Oscar Best Song, The Continental. It earned a profit of $584,000, making Fred and Ginger already the top earners at RKO. It got a nice review in the New York Times. Like the carefree team of Rogers and Astaire, The Gay Divorcee is gay in its mood and smart in its approach. For The Gay Divorcee, Fred was granted his demand for 6 weeks of dance practice before anyone else was allowed on the set. Ginger supported this intense preparation period.
Idea of how much work went into photographing one number, like the one we saw tonight?
Well, it would take, we have 6 weeks of preparation for doing the film, for the pre-production. At the end of 6 weeks, we'd have what we thought was a polished routine, or routines, plural. But 6 weeks was certainly a good round figure for what we had to do. And I must say I was very grateful for that, because polish is something that dance has to have. Because I love rehearsals. Because I love to work. I'm a workaholic.
Fred was finally getting his way regarding practice and preparation, which he was never able to do before. Fred said in his biography about Adele, "I never made her work too hard because she simply would not do it. Deli hated to practice. She didn't need to." To create this level of perfection requires hard work, and a big reason for the team's great success was because they were both hard workers. It is difficult to comprehend that the great Fred Astaire was an odd mix of supreme confidence and massive insecurity, so much so that Adele gave him the nickname Moaning Minnie, because he never stopped worrying. Fred calls himself Moaning Minnie in his biography. Unbelievably, in regards to the body of his work, Fred said, "I've never yet got anything 100% right. Still, it is never as bad as I think it is."
Do you watch the old films on the tube, as we say?
Actually, I don't watch them because I really don't like watching them. You always wish you had done something better. Occasionally, if it goes long enough, then you look back at what you've done. You say, all of a sudden, I might say, well, gee, I didn't know that was that good, or gee, that wasn't too bad, or something like that. I don't often look at the rushes of the movie dialogue and that sort of thing. I always go to look at the musical numbers because I have to check on that for cutting reasons and everything else, and I always see if that's all right. I'm not trying to sort of put myself down or anything. I don't think I'm much of an actor, frankly. I mean, there's certain things I can do and I kind of like it, and I go, oh boy, that's it.
Yeah.
The fellow who's got it made, that's the kind of a part I like best. I think was, at that time, what I thought, this is the best thing I've ever done. Leads to a lot of disappointments, maybe.
To always want it to be the best.
Well, if they don't turn out as well as you hope.
Yeah.
This is not an act. All accounts of Fred described him as shy, self-effacing. A telling statement by Fred came at the end of the forethoughts in his biography. "I have had some of my most interesting and memorable moments on an empty stage in an empty theater, by myself, alone. I would be in before the ushers or stagehands arrived, so that I could run through some steps and concentrate on what I had to do that night. I like an empty theater." For Fred, it was always about the dance. Now, starting with The Gay Divorcee, and with Ginger as his partner, Fred was totally in charge of the dance scenes, from the choreography through the editing process. It would be done his way, which meant rigorous practice and training and endless takes in the search for perfection. All this was new to Fred, to everyone. Nobody had ever done it this way. Fred brought his Broadway methodology to Hollywood. Ginger had been on Broadway. Her actions were nothing special, right? After his long career, dancing with so many other partners, Fred came to appreciate Ginger's toughness and work ethic had been special. In one instance, explained later on, in Swing Time's Never Gonna Dance, to an amazing degree. Later, Fred said to Raymond Rollhauer, curator of the New York Gallery of Modern Art, Ginger was brilliantly effective. She made everything work for her. Actually, she made things very fine for the both of us, and she deserves most of the credit for our success. In a 1986 interview, Fred said, all the girls I ever danced with thought they couldn't do it, so they always cried. All except Ginger. No, Ginger never cried. In a later interview, Fred modified it to most every other girl.
When you have a dancing partner, there's always going to be a time that the girl is going to cry. Ginger didn't do that. But most every other girl that I worked with cried because they said they couldn't. Oh, I can't do it or something. Oh, you can. Shut up. Get on, do it. And they do it or what.
I was pleased to see this modification because there is no way he made the great Eleanor Powell cry. Some say Ginger never cried. In her bio, she does not say that. She said she would never let them see her cry, never give them the satisfaction. Who knows how many tears she shed in the privacy of her dressing room. The funniest quote I read about Fred's practicing style was by Artie Shaw, who did second chorus with Fred. About Fred's work ethic, Artie said, Astaire really sweat. He toiled. He was the humorless Teutonic man. This was not an insult. Artie thought this was great.
Fred is quite a perfectionist, you know. Fred Astaire is one of the most demanding of people.
Fred agreed, describing himself in his biography as really bad-tempered, impatient, hard to please, critical. There are several anecdotal stories about this.
They had made 13 canes, and to try to get the long takes that he did, he would get mad and he'd break them over his knee.
While almost always humble and self-effacing, Fred loved to repeat quotes from Hollywood tough guys. James Cagney said to him, "You know, you so-and-so, you've got a little of the hoodlum in you." At the end of Fred's biography, he writes, "I wanted to do all my dancing my own way, in a sort of outlaw style." Like a lot of guys, Fred likes to see himself as tough and a little bit of a rascal. That's okay. But there are no stories of Fred ever being mean or cruel. Just an obsessed perfectionist. Sorry, tough guy. Everybody thought you were a real nice guy. As to why the unnamed partners cried, where Ginger never did, there are no details, so one is left to theorize. Perhaps a frustrated outburst by Fred caused it. But it could just be exhaustion from the brutal rehearsing and shooting schedule, combined with demands for unreachable perfection. Fred never asked anyone to do anything he was not doing himself. He actually did more. And he was at least a decade older than all his partners. But they had never come through the vaudeville circuits like he and Ginger had in their youths, with the endless performances and rushing from venue to venue without a break. In Ginger, he had a partner who worked as hard as he did.
Gracious of him and very generous of him to say that. We both are perfectionists, and he loves everything to be precise, and so do I. And so we were always aiming for that one long take in one piece of film so that the whole dance would go in front of your face without a cut.
It was a good thing she was, because Fred worked on one thing, the dance, but worked on it obsessively.
Sometimes Fred would get home, he'd call me and say, "Well, do you think that one step is quite right? It doesn't seem to..." He said, "I really hate it." I said, "Well, if you hate it," he said, "we'll change it tomorrow." His sister, Adele, used to call him Moaning Minnie. He's famous for worrying.
Ginger said about Fred, "Sometimes he'll think of a new line of dialogue, a new angle for the story. They never know what time of night he'll call up and start ranting enthusiastically about a fresh idea. No loafing on the job under the stair picture, and no cutting corners. And he would have Ginger arrive 5 a.m. the next morning to implement this. The most startling quote about this came from Ginger. She said they would both lose 15 pounds from the start of the dancing rehearsals till the end of the movie. She could not get her dresses fit correctly until later in the process than the dress designers needed because of this weight loss. Sounds a little crazy to me. I do not see how these two had 15 pounds to lose. Even if exaggerated, it is an indicator of how hard they worked. In Fred's biography, he is all thrilled with being teamed up with Ginger again. He was not lying. It is just his idea of proper behavior, to never allow his dirty laundry being aired in public, to never say anything to discredit Ginger, or, for that matter, anyone else, to the public. I thought Ginger honored Fred's classy ways best on Nightline, the day Fred passed away.
His talent is one that's going to live forever, and I think the centuries that come on, the youngsters will find they'll look to him for class, style, and charm, because he epitomizes it.
But in private, Fred had big issues being partnered with Ginger again in Gay Divorcee and afterwards. Ginger defends Fred's reasoning in her biography. He had been teamed with Adele for so long that he feared being identified, yet again, with any one female. The always defensive Ginger then also defends herself. While I could sympathize with his feelings about being teamed with me, I, on the other hand, had no apprehensions about making more films with him. Why should I? I had an opportunity to appear in non-musicals by myself. For every film I did with Fred Astaire, I did 3 or 4 without him. Our partnership was a limited one only in his case, not in mine. Fred didn't have this luxury. He was a musical comedy star, period.
I went through a lot of hell getting them to make picture after picture for various reasons. Fred did not want to work with Ginger in her first picture because she wasn't an English girl in Gay Divorce. I persuaded him that the American audience didn't give a damn. They liked her. He didn't want to work with her in his second picture because he certainly didn't want to carry the team to another one. And that thing just went on and on and on.
I don't think anybody wants to get teamed up. You know, I was teamed up with my sister for years. I always used to say, what am I going to do when she decided not to, and she decided not to, so I went off alone, and when I get teamed up with Ginger Rogers.
At the time, though, Fred was a bit blunter. In a telegram to his agent, Leland Hayward, Fred wrote, "What's all this talk about me being teamed with Ginger Rogers? I will not have it, Leland. I've just managed to live down one partnership, and I don't want to be bothered with any more." Can you blame him?
And I solved it really by getting the company to give him a new contract, which gave him 10% of the profits. And after he got that first few checks from the profits, his reluctance to work with her evaporated.
The elephant in the room that nobody talks about, though, was Phyllis wondering why Fred had to do 9 of his first 11 movies with his ex-girlfriend. Phyllis's increasing and disruptive presence on the set speaks volumes, though. This had to be a factor in Fred not wanting to be teamed up with Ginger. Another important contributor, starting with Gay Divorcee, was Mark Sandrich, who directed 5 of Fred and Ginger's 9 movies for RKO. He moved on to Paramount in 1939 and directed 2 Fred and Bing Crosby movies. He passed from a heart attack at only 45 years old. Fred wrote in his biography about the ingenuity of Pandro Berman and Mark Sandrich, and I was fully aware of their capabilities and my good fortune in being associated with them. Together, the threesome charted out the movies in exacting detail, minute by minute. Sandrich's movies are crisply directed, no lagging moments. In her biography and in interviews, Ginger does have harsh words for some individuals, none more than Mark Sandrich. He constantly tormented Ginger, according to her biography, flat out insulting her one time.
I had a director by the name of Sandrich Mark Sandridge. And he said to me, "Ginger, why don't you take singing, dancing, and acting lessons?" Here I am working in movies for him. I thought it was very rude.
Ginger compliments some directors for knowing how to deal with an actress and criticizes others as just part of the boys' club that ran the industry. About Sandridge, she later writes, "Mark worshipped Fred's genius and thought he was the greatest thing since 7-Up. I was dismissed as a little bubblehead. He really tried to cut me down to size." More on this later as it comes up. In between The Gay Divorcee and Roberta, Ginger had second billing in a charming romantic comedy, Romance in Manhattan. Francis Lederer was a big star in Germany. He came to America to star on Broadway and stayed when conditions in Germany deteriorated, especially for Jewish people. MGM's Irving Thalberg planned on making Lederer the biggest star in Hollywood, but then passed away. Lederer never made it big, but he made a fortune in real estate. He founded the American National Academy of Performing Arts. Jimmy Butler was a child star and is great in this movie. He stood out in several early movies. He died serving his country in World War II in France in 1945. It also featured the consummate character actor, J. Farrell McDonald, who appeared in over 300 movies between 1911 and 1951, had appeared with Ginger before, and would appear one more time with her. Ginger is charming in this movie as a sweet young girl, only 19 years old, raising her 12-year-old brother. Money is tough, so he helps by selling newspapers, and sometimes skips school to do so, causing the truancy officers to threaten to take him away. With this, Ginger has several very sad scenes where she displays her versatility. Lederer came to America legally, but the rules changed and they were sending him back. Desperate, he jumps ship and swims ashore, and loses his money doing so. Exhausted and hungry, he steals some food, and Ginger catches him. Sweet Ginger wants to help, and puts in a good word with the officer on the beat, McDonald. Ginger sets Lederer up to sleep on the roof of her building and gets him work with her brother. Things go well for them for a while. Lederer becomes a cab driver and is saving up to get his immigration status settled, something he has kept from Ginger. He has become a good friend to Officer McDonald and seeks advice from him. And a romance is growing between Ginger and Lederer.
Because the only millionaire you are going to marry is me.
Why, Carl, are you turning caveman on me?
Yes, sir. Well, what about the millionaire now?
Well, right now he's driving a taxi cab, and he's got awfully wet hands.
Then it all falls apart. Ginger loses her job, the cab drivers go on strike, and their savings are disappearing. Butler starts skipping school again to sell more papers and is arrested. In court, Ginger loses custody.
Oh, don't cry, Sil. There's nothing to cry about. Honest, there isn't.
The judge said that Frank would come back to you when you got married.
So he did.
Sylvia, will you marry me?
Thank you, Carl. Thank you very much. I appreciate your offering to help.
But this is not an offer to help. I'm asking you to marry me.
I know, but I couldn't accept that kind of a marriage. Not even to keep Frank.
Sylvia, you're crying.
Oh, no, I'm not.
You... Sylvia, so you do care. You love me.
Well, what if I do?
Lederer is desperate. He goes to McDonald for advice, and then hires a lawyer to fix his immigration status. Instead, the sleazebag lawyer turns Lederer in for the reward. In the funniest scene in the movie, McDonald and his fellow Irish cops go after the lawyer.
Drunker than a hoot owl. I don't see how he could get so drunk so quickly. I am not drunk.
The line is here. Keep your hands off me. Resisting an officer?
resisting an officer.
Then they call in favors. Letter gets his citizenship. They get married right there, and they all live happily ever after. One thing that stands out in this movie is the cinematography. Unlike many of her early movies, they took the time, and Ginger is beautiful, sometimes stunning, throughout. In other instances, Ginger praises the cinematographer, and she also should have praised Nicholas Masaraca, who was nominated for 1 Oscar for his fine work. He had done Chance at Heaven with Ginger, but it also takes having the director allow the cinematographer the time he needs. We are overdue for a crazy Ginger story, and this one, from her biography, is a doozy. Ginger married Lou Ayres November 14, 1934. Her agent, Leland Hayward, wanted to escort Ginger in the limo to the wedding. When Hayward saw Ginger, he tightly embraced her. Leela said, "I thought Ginger was marrying Lou today." Hayward replied, "Ginger is marrying me today." Ginger thought he was kidding, even though she knew he had a crush on her. He was not kidding. On the ride, he seriously proposed to her. "Let's turn the car around and go to Santa Barbara. Will you marry me?" Ginger was stunned. "If this is a joke, Leland, I don't think it's very funny." As they arrived at the church, Hayward told the driver to go around the block and continued his onslaught. Ginger had to tell the driver to take her to the front of the church immediately. All of this was enough, but when reading Katharine Hepburn's biography, my jaw dropped. Hepburn devotes an entire chapter to Hayward about their loving relationship and how Leland wanted to marry her. She refused, but very much wanted to continue their relationship. When he suddenly married Margaret Sullivan November 15, 1936, Hepburn was devastated. Like Fred, Hepburn is terrible at providing dates. I had to double check. Hayward proposed to Ginger in the middle of his relationship with Hepburn. Did Ginger tell anyone about what happened? Did the driver? Did Hayward? The vicious Hollywood gossip industry would eat this up. Was this part of the reason for Hepburn's animosity towards Ginger, as Ginger tells it in her biography? And this is not the only man's affection they shared. Anyway, Ginger goes into great detail about how she and Ayres were in love. Before the comments, in this and some following movies, the clips are all very, very short. That is not by choice. YouTube employs a robotic copyright checking system, and while I do understand the need to protect your property, it has gone, in my opinion, way too far. In this long format, if I show 12 seconds of Fred singing Cheek to Cheek, Warner Brothers takes all revenue from an over hour-and-a-half long documentary. Most of my videos are not monetized, and you can go through the playlist and see longer clips as I cut the movie up into sections. I do believe copyright being extended to 95 years is a bit much. Top Hat comes off of copyright in 2030. 5 months after Gay Divorcee, Fred and Ginger had second and third billing in Roberta, starring Irene Dunne, and once again they stole the show.
Is there anything I can do for you? No.
Irene Dunne had a great 2-decade run in Hollywood, and again probably should have made AFI's top 25 actresses. While her soprano singing voice in Roberta is not appreciated now, it was very popular during her time. After failing to join the Metropolitan Opera Company, she turned to Broadway, which led to her Hollywood career. She was nominated for Best Actress in RKO's first hit, 1931 Cimarron, and 17 years later was nominated for the 5th time in 1948's I Remember Mama. Randall Scott had his Hollywood debut in 1929 as the Virginian. He had a nice run of leading parts for Paramount, but became a big box office draw when he turned to westerns in the late 1940s. While never earning any professional recognition, he was a steady fixture on the top moneymaker poll for 9 straight years. Fred and Ginger had second and third billing, provide half the songs, all of the dance scenes, and all the comedic scenes. Ginger had come up through vaudeville as a singer-comedian, and here in the first of only 2 times in the series, gets to showcase her talent. Fred is perfect with the straight lead opposite her. They were so good, in 2 great 3-part scenes, and elsewhere, they steal the show. The second time they play supporting roles, the second time they steal the show. It's no wonder nobody ever played the lead over them again. Career suicide. There are too many great scenes in this movie to cover here. There is full coverage in the complete Fred and Ginger playlist, or, better yet, watch it for yourself. It is one of their best. Fred and his band, the Indianians, accompanied by Scott, arrive in France for a gig, and lose the gig right there on the dock. Scott brings them to his Aunt Roberta's famous fashion house. Scott and Dunn meet, and sparks fly immediately. A few minutes later, Dunn is harassed by one nasty bitch of a customer, Ginger, the Countess Tanka Charvenka.
No! You are not the only couturier in Paris. I am a good advertising for the house that dresses me. I do not know why I come to Roberta anyway. Will you quit pushing me?
Roberta, charmingly played by Helen Wesley, realizes Ginger, a nightclub performer, could get the band a job. So outside they put on an impromptu audition.
Don't forget, since we met, there's no reason for vain regret. Oh,
both Fred and Ginger are stunned when he sees her on the balcony, so he rushes upstairs and meets the Countess. Fred is sarcastic the entire time.
Pardon, monsieur.
Oh, poof. It is nothing, Toots. Poof.
When they meet in private, we learn they know each other, and the Countess routine is just for Ginger's nightclub act. Dunn, Roberta's assistant, sings Roberta to sleep for her nap. Fred and Ginger did a 3-part sequence where I believe they stole the show.
I have faults, to be specific, in not temper. Oh, I'm terrific. I throw chairs and tables, and I never miss.
I remember that. I think that's the only Valentine I ever received.
It's the only one I ever sent.
Oh, those were the happy days, weren't they?
They then break into one of their greatest fun dances of all time, I'll Be Hard to Handle. Most of their dances were done on shiny floors that so deadened the sound they had to be dubbed over afterwards. But here, in the only instance I know of, we hear their real tapping because it was done on a wood floor. Maybe what made this dance so great is they did it in one take, totally fresh and natural. Ginger wrote, Fred and my laughter and giggling as we got into the throes of the dance were not added either. They were real. The two of us enjoyed dancing together. The spontaneity was very real, and it makes me laugh when I see it today. The will was not found, so Scott inherits the business, but he does not want it, wants to give it to Dunn. Dunn had been promised to inherit it, so she is leaving, but after some back and forth they agree to run it together. Ginger loves tormenting Fred.
And tall, handsome gentlemen with large bank accounts will be asking for my telephone number. And getting it.
Scott finally asks Dunn out, and she accepts. Then it arrives, Scott's recent ex-girl, a horrible rich snob perfectly portrayed by Claire Dodd. Dunn walks in on them kissing and is devastated. Fred schemes to get rid of her at the band's opening night, and it works. But then Scott gets drunk. Now comes the second of the 2 great 3-part scenes for Fred and Ginger. First, for the first time, Fred shows off his filthy piano playing skills.
Think of what you're losing by constantly refusing to dance with me. You'd be the idol of France with me. And yet you stand there and shake your foolish head dramatically while I wait here so ecstatically. You just look and say emphatically,
Not, I won't dance. Don't ask me, I won't dance, Madame, with you.
Dunn enters with Marconi, to much fanfare in this Russian club, because she is also a princess. She sings the beautiful Smoke Gets in Your Eyes.
something here inside cannot be denied.
A drunken, jealous Scot confronts Dunn, and harsh words are exchanged. She resumes singing the song, this time very upset, as he walks out the door.
When a lovely flame down, smoke gets in your...
They both leave the business in Fred's capable hands. Dunn visits to criticize how things are going.
Who's been running the business?
Did you say running or ruining?
Such a pity.
The famous Roberta to go second rate.
Roberta's will never go second rate.
They put on a musical fashion show, with Fred as the host. This scene is very long, too long for my taste, but it does have the first quick appearance of Lucille Ball in a big movie. Ginger, and even more her mother Leela, were crucial in supporting Lucy early in her career.
Lovely to look at, delightful to know, and heaven to kiss. A combination like this.
Lovely to look at, delightful to know, and heaven to kiss.
He's glad my most impossible dream come true. Imagine finding a boy like you.
I guess I'll have to give in to you.
To me?
But I thought you were about to want to marry me.
Well, I was.
Well, I accept.
Well, thanks very much.
Oh, I was just thinking it must be fun to suddenly find yourself a princess married to a nice prince.
I was born a princess. I'm not married to Ladislaw. He's my cousin.
Fred and Ginger got the closing scene with a rollicking dance to I Won't Dance. Management must have already realized they had stolen the show. Over the years, Fred and Ginger refuted the endless stories they did not get along, or worse. This dance is a perfect example of what Ginger meant when she wrote about the old story that Fred and I hated each other. All you have to do is watch us. We had fun, and it shows. The movie was a hit, 10th highest revenue of the year, and netted a profit of $770,000. Lovely to Look At was nominated Oscar Best Song. Fred and Ginger were on a roll. Ginger was pleased her old friend William A. Sider was the director, who had directed several of her previous movies. He was famous for directing all the great comedy teams of their time, and his touch shows in Fred and Ginger's funniest movie. A weird fact, Roberta did very well on the Billboard Top 100. Of the 7 songs, 4 made the top 10 in multiple renditions, with 3 #1 hits, but not one by the cast of the movie. Ginger continued her busy schedule. Less than a week after completing Roberta with Fred Astaire, she started Star of Midnight with William Powell, on loan from MGM. Powell was a great actor, and Ginger more than holds her own alongside him in this sophisticated, witty, comedic mystery movie. This movie did very well, with a nice $265,000 profit for RKO. This is a very good movie, great performances by the leads, and some excellent performances by some of the supporting cast. Totally charming. It suffered then, as now, with comparisons between it and Powell's breakout role in The Thin Man, released almost a year before, and Ginger and Myrna Loy's performances of a similar role. This is silly to me. Hollywood copying a successful film? They never do that. Really, how many truly original movies are there? Taking Star of Midnight on its own merit, it is very enjoyable. The reviews were positive. William Powell started on the stage by 1912, entered the silence in 1924, but made his mark with his great voice once movies transitioned to sound. His breakout role was in 1933's The Kennel Murder Case. 1934's The Thin Man made him a star. Powell could do comedy, drama, or thrillers. He was engaged to Jean Harlow when she died, and took off from acting for a year. His last Best Actor nomination was for 1947's Life with Father. All good movies are enhanced by excellent performances by character actors, and this is no exception. Paul Kelly is great as the tough but smart and oddly honorable gang leader, with whom Powell shares a mutually respectful, if confrontational, relationship. Kelly had an active career. According to Wikipedia, it is estimated that Kelly worked on stage, screen, and television in over 400 roles, starting his career on Broadway at 8, in the silence at 12, and working nonstop until his early death in 1956 at age 57 from a heart attack. Brought up in a tough Brooklyn neighborhood, his criminal record added authenticity to his playing gangsters. April 16, 1927, he beat fellow actor and previous close friend Ray Raymond to death over his affair with Raymond's wife, actress Dorothy McKay. Kelly was sentenced to up to 10 years, but served only 25 months in San Quentin prison. McKay was convicted of attempted cover-up and sentenced to 1 to 3 years, but served less than 10 months. Kelly and McKay married in 1931. Then McKay died 3 days after an auto crash in 1940. This was great character actor J. Farrell McDonald's third and final appearance with Ginger, and he is great as the tough, smart, and capable big city detective. Very accomplished character actor Gene Lockhart plays Powell's befuddled butler and provides some light comedy in the role. Leslie Fenton plays the lover of the star of the movie's title, who asks Powell for help in finding her. He was great in The Public Enemy, playing Nails Nathan, but here his role gives him nothing to work with. Ginger was with director Stephen Roberts for the second time, previously in Romance in Manhattan, and both movies are very well directed, sharp and crisp. He passed away within a year at only 40 years old. One thing Ginger loved about this movie was her wardrobe, a very important subject to her. In her bio, she gushes about fashion designer Bernard Newman's work, especially this opening outfit. If you watch this movie, and I hope you do, it is truly worthwhile. I give you this caution. When a character is introduced, take notice of the name, because the plot is very convoluted, and the names fly around in conversation. And without the names, you will get confused as to what is going on. I sure was on the first viewing. Powell's friend comes to him for help finding a missing woman. Powell is a lawyer famous for doing great detective work. Ginger plays Powell's fiancée, at least in her mind, and is ever present in his life, even though he often treats her as a sweet annoyance.
You'll like this kid, Tim. She's quite a character. I've known her since she was 10. She ran away from home when she was 11. They found her in my apartment. She announced that she had decided to marry me.
Oh, be careful of her.
You could go a lot further and do a lot worse. Did you tell Tommy Tennant that we were going to be married?
Certainly.
Hmm.
Well, you can't get ruled off for trying.
There's not a word of truth in it.
Ginger also comes to him for help.
Dal, I need help. I'm in a jam.
I know. Kinlan.
How did you know about that?
Lieutenant. I just managed to kill the story.
You see, there are some letters.
Oh, I get it. Good old Dal. He can get the letters back from the nasty gunman. Get killed doing it, probably.
Oh, no, you won't, Dal. You're too smart. Please. My mother just adores me.
It'd be more to the point if she spanked you. I have a mind to do it myself.
Well, this'll be new.
You asked for it.
Say, that hurt!
They are going to the new hit play, Midnight, with the mysterious star Mary Smith, who always wears a mask and has never been seen.
A woman like that captures the imagination. Mysterious.
Mysterious, my eye. Your masked marvel probably has a wart on the end of her nose.
Meow. To the mysterious Mary Smith.
Powell gets the letters back from Kelly, the tough gang leader, in a very interesting role, an odd ally of sorts. They deal with each other, regardless of being on opposing sides, with mutual respect. As Powell's leaving, they hear the news of the Star of Midnight's mysterious disappearance in the middle of her show. It ends up the Star of Midnight is the same woman Fenton has been looking for. The reporter visits Powell to share information with him.
I found out the greatest double cross that's ever been pulled. This guy was pretending to...
Detective McDonald and his dumb assistant, performed by Robert Emmett O'Connor, question Powell, but he is in a jam. He cannot mention Fenton without making him a prime suspect, and surely cannot mention Kelly, and the cops know he is hiding something. Making matters worse, he gets a call from Fenton during the investigation, tells them it is Ginger, and a minute later, Ginger walks in. McDonald knows Powell is not the suspect and plans on following Powell's personal investigation.
You can't break him with words. Words are his business. He's a lawyer. Now just let him alone and let him do the work for us.
Powell finds out Ginger played him on the issue of the letters. It was her friend who was in trouble.
Hello. Hello, Anita. You can quit worrying. I've got your letters. Oh, that's all right.
I have to stop here. What follows is a very clever, complicated whodunit plot with an ever-changing list of suspects that takes too long to explain in a short summary. In between, there are many cute scenes with Powell and Ginger, who tries to assist in the investigation, and Ginger sparkles throughout. The movie is covered thoroughly in the Ginger playlist, and again, it is really worth the watch. Fred and Ginger are on a great run, starting with the Carioca making Flying Down to Rio a hit, then the Gay Divorcee earning even more, being nominated for Oscar Best Picture and winning the first Oscar Best Song, and now Roberta appearing on the top 10 revenue movies of the year. To put this into perspective, only 3 times did a Fred and Ginger movie appear on the top 10 movie revenue of the year list. Their 2 best-known and highly regarded movies, Top Hat and Swing Time, and Roberta. Roberta did it first, and gave them their first big-time exposure. Yet no one, it seems, besides me, ranks this movie as one of their best. There is a reason. This is the forgotten Fred and Ginger movie, because when their movies started appearing on television, Roberta was left out, not really seen for almost 40 years. I believe there are 4 factors that affect a movie standing when it's released and over time. The most important is, of course, the movie itself. That includes how it is promoted, and little RKO did not have the muscle, the advertising budget and distribution network of the big studios. So to succeed, they had to have something really special. This makes the incredible upcoming success of Top Hat all the more amazing. The next most important factor is the performer's last movie. If you loved them last time, you are eager to see their next movie, and I truly believe their great performances in Roberta helped launch Top Hat to success. Ginger's independent movies also helped. While over time, for some, she became an asterisk in Fred's career. That so distorts the reality of this time. Ginger was on her way to reach the top in her industry, with both professional accolades and financial rewards. The public wanted more. Word of mouth is next, and the public raved about their performance. Finally, over time, a movie has to be seen to be recognized, to reach the level of all-time great movies. Roberta never got the chance, because nobody saw it. It's still great. If anyone was to say in mid-1935 that Fred and Ginger's next movie would be great, that would have been a reasonable prediction. Nobody could have foreseen it would be a blockbuster, second highest revenue movie of the year, showered with professional awards, owning the Billboard Top 100, featured some of the greatest dance scenes ever, RKO's most profitable movie of the entire era, and still regarded as one of the all-time greatest musicals ever made. And they got to this point in only their fourth movie. 6 months after Roberta, Fred and Ginger, with the release of Top Hat, reached a level of success rarely achieved. A masterpiece that at the time was critically acclaimed and a huge financial success, and in retrospect still regarded as one of the greatest musicals ever. Top Hat was nominated for Best Picture, and Fred's Cheek to Cheek was nominated Best Song. 2 dances were nominated for Best Dance Direction, The Piccolino, and Top Hat, White Tie, and Tails. And while they are great dances, I rate the gorgeous Cheek to Cheek the second greatest and the most beautiful dance scene ever. More importantly, the public loved this movie. Second highest gross revenue movie of the year, the most successful RKO movie of the entire era. Fred and Ginger were never more popular, with their previous movie, Roberta, also the 10th highest revenue movie of the year. The top moneymaker poll, started in 1912, was the opinion of the movie theater managers, where the industry dealt directly with the public. Fred and Ginger reached 4th place. Oscar-nominated Cheek to Cheek was also a hit on the radio, reaching number 1 on the Billboard Top 100. All 5 songs made the top 10. It is AFI, the American Film Institute's 15th best musical ever. I believe it should be higher. Cheek to Cheek is AFI's 15th greatest song ever. 4 of the 5 dance scenes are among the drive-in top 100 movie dances. Ginger wrote they were told that during the opening at Radio City Music Hall, the audience applauded each of the numbers. That's something. Top Hat was produced by Pandro S. Berman, directed by Mark Sandrich, songs by Irving Berlin, co-starring Edward Everett Horton, the great Helen Broderick, Eric Rhodes, and Eric Blore. Fred is in England to put on a show produced by Horton. Fred sings the charming No Strings, I'm Fancy Free, bragging about his bachelor life.
My decks are cleared for action, I'm fancy free, free for anything fancy.
Then he breaks out into a dance to the song, stomping away, and wakes up an angry Ginger in the hotel room below. She confronts Fred, and there goes his fancy-free days as he is struck by her beauty. In a very sweet scene, Fred plays Sandman, dancing to put Ginger back to sleep. Lucy got a small speaking scene here, but was so nervous she struggled with her lines, and Leela came down and adjusted the script so Lucy could handle it. When showering Ginger with flowers doesn't work, Fred changes places with the livery driver to take Ginger to her horseback riding, and she is furious, but also a little charmed. Ginger is trapped by a thunderstorm, and Fred takes advantage. He sings the sweet, "Isn't this a lovely day to be caught in the rain?" to Ginger, and then they do one of their funnest dances to the song.
Isn't this a lovely day to be caught in the rain?
It worked. Ginger is a model for fashion designer Rhodes and ecstatically tells him how thrilled she is with Fred. Now, like in The Gay Divorcee, a mistaken identity plot twist becomes the basis for all the comedic situations the rest of the movie. Ginger is led to believe Fred is her friend Broderick's husband and is furious. There is no way all the comedic twists and turns can be explained in a summary, where every single character is caught up in the confusion. Watch the movie or follow the playlist. It's great. As part of his show, Fred sings the great Top Hat, White Tie and Tails, and then does one of his most memorable solo dances to it.
Putting down my top hat, mussing up my white tie, dancing in my tail.
They all head down to Venice and to the most amazing Art Deco GWS, Great White Set, ever, taking up 2 studios. The insane, yet so very clever, script continues on. Poor Horton suffers the brunt of the misunderstandings, including his life being threatened twice by Rhodes, in defense of Ginger's honor, and Broderick gives him a black eye. Ginger and Broderick scheme against Fred, but he turns the tables on Ginger, and she is more upset than ever. Finally, with Horton in hiding from Rhodes, Fred, Ginger, and Broderick meet. Broderick is playing matchmaker. Fred loves it, but it is so bizarre to Ginger. The highlight of the movie is a very beautiful song and the most beautiful dance in movie history, to Irving Berlin's Cheek to Cheek, and one famous, or infamous, unusual ostrich feather dress. Fred sings to Ginger in his very charming way, and she stares at him intently, letting all know Fred is mesmerizing. Then they dance, and the audience is mesmerized by this beautiful, dramatic, flowing scene.
Heaven, I'm in heaven, when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek.
Ginger is overwhelmed with emotions after the dance, and actually considers being Fred's mistress, until he asks her to marry him. After declaring she loves him, she slaps Fred in a fury and storms off. Poor Fred does not have a clue. Torn between her passion and her morality, Ginger agrees to marry Rhodes to escape the hold Fred has on her heart. Back to the zany plot. Fred, Horton, and Broderick finally resolve the confusion, and Fred gets Ginger alone to explain it to her. More zany plot. This threesome is adrift in the Adriatic Sea. Never mind trying to explain. Fred and Ginger take advantage of the time to enjoy dinner and dancing, leading up to the last of the large ensemble Busby Berkeley-style dance numbers in their movies, the Piccolino. Ginger is adorable singing the song. Then the two do a lively dance to it, also nominated for Oscar Best Dance Direction.
Make them play the piccolino, the catchy piccolino, and dance to the strains of that new melody.
Fred and Ginger confront Ginger's husband, Rhodes, but with another plot twist, it ends up they were never really married, and Fred and Ginger live happily ever after, doing a final quick dance. I use a great deal of statistics in my videos, both to support my statements, being more than just my personal opinion, and to reflect the time period the movie was made. I also use all-time awards and statistics. I stand by this criteria. The greatest indication of how a movie is received, in its time, is being nominated or winning Oscar Best Picture, reflecting the professional opinion of the movie, and gross ticket revenue, reflecting public opinion by money spent and bodies in movie theater seats. When sound first arrived, musicals dominated the top revenue charts. One of the most statistically successful musicals ever is 1929's The Broadway Melody. This movie, though, is an outlier on this list. It was so new the public loved it, but, as I said, it was from the primitive era, and the acting, except for Bessie Love, is terrible, and the song and dance scenes not much better. It was still special for its time. In 1929, musicals took the top 9 spots. Then it dropped off because of the technical difficulties and poor quality of what is referred to as the primitive era, and rose again in 1933 when the technology improved. While not the leads, Fred's Dancing Lady and Ginger's Gold Diggers of 1933 and 42nd Street were part of the 1933 rebound. After 1933, only 18 musicals ranked number 1 or 2 in revenue for the year. Only 12 top 2 revenue musicals were also nominated for Oscar Best Picture. Top Hat was the number 2 revenue in 1935, because that year The Great Mutiny on the Bounty was released, starring the King, Clark Gable, at the height of his career. You don't face much tougher competition than that. Well, Fred and Ginger hit their second highest ranking ever at 4th that year on the Moneymaker poll. Gable was still ahead of them. I truly believe if it was not for these two, not for this great movie, this exclusive list of 5 musicals that won Oscar Best Picture and were the top revenue movies for the year would be 6, and Fred and Ginger would have their rightful statistical place atop movie musical history. You just don't get to pick your competition for the year. Top Hat, their highest grossing movie ever, which many consider their greatest movie ever, is also when several serious issues arose in their partnership. Very uncharacteristic for Fred, in his biography he had a few laughs at Ginger's expense regarding her fighting against a script that became one of her most financially successful movies, Bachelor Mother. Ginger being Ginger, she gets even here, but she also explains a very difficult situation she and Fred had to endure, and how it affected the movies they made. I must note here Ginger's biography was published in 1991, 4 years after Fred's passing in 1987. I believe she waited to tell her version till then, not wanting to offend Fred. Ginger wrote, Fred had a strong negative reaction when he first read the script. He wrote a handwritten 3-page letter outlining his objections, saying in part, as this book is supposed to have been written for me, with the intention of giving me a chance to do things that are more suited to me, I cannot see that my part embodies any of the necessary elements, except to dance, dance, dance. I cannot see that there is any real story or plot to this script. The lead into Cheek to Cheek is hopeless as presently designed. The fact that Rogers slaps me in the face in 2 different episodes is certainly wrong. This was part of a pattern, though, and Ginger says, Mrs. Astaire exerted pressure on her husband, subtly or unconsciously. She would come on the set with her knitting and sit on the sidelines clacking her needles. I found her presence disconcerting, especially during dialogue takes. Fred was uneasy at these times, too. One thing's for sure, she never warmed up to me, and she surely didn't want her husband to either. Fred said he couldn't stand mushy love scenes and felt like a fool kissing for the camera. Frankly, I think Phyllis didn't want him kissing other women. When a script was released to Fred, the 2 of them would huddle over it for a few hours. Then he'd march down to the producer's office with a dozen reasons why it would be better if the protagonists never clinched. Thus, there were no love scenes with the leading lady. This was nuts. Making these movies must have been hard enough. They had to also endure Phyllis sitting there, constantly reminded of her presence by the loudly clicking knitting needles, seething about that Ginger bitch. Phyllis should have been sent home. On the one point, though, Fred's shyness did make him very uncomfortable doing intimate romantic scenes. Here is a good story coming out of the movie, but, once again, it is one of my theories, not proven fact. If I am right, here Fred is taking care of his partner and improving the movie. Ginger writes that Fred did not want to sing the Piccolino, so she got to sing it. This happens again in Carefree, where Fred refuses to sing the yam. There are commonalities to these two events. Sandrich is the director, Berlin the composer, and if Fred did not discard these songs, Ginger would have had no songs in these movies. This is nuts. Ginger was very popular, and her singing was fine for plays and movies. She had won the first Best Song Oscar. Her fan base would not have easily accepted her being silenced. As to Fred not liking the Piccolino, that's funny. He had no problem recording it for the radio. It is his version that hit the top 10. So let's get this straight. Fred revered the great composers. He was friends with Berlin. They socialized away from the movies. He used to play cards with Berlin. But Fred is going to announce to the entire set that Berlin's song sucks so bad he refuses to sing it? Ginger writes, Fred told Pandro Berman, "I hate that song. Give it to Ginger." I don't think so. Berlin must have been in on this. Fred went to Berman, not Sandrich, to dump this song. Maybe Berman was in on it also. Several times Berman went out of his way to defend Ginger, ultimately calling Sandrich to task over his treatment of Ginger. Ginger does not make it clear when this occurred, but several times she repeats that Sandrich said to her, "Ginger, why don't you take some dancing, singing, and acting lessons?" I just cannot understand what Sandrich thought Ginger was doing so wrong, and why he would feel the need to say something like this. For what purpose? To what benefit? Was he oblivious as to how well these movies were doing, and how much the public loved Ginger? Did he believe they would do better with another actress? What I am suggesting here is that, as director, twice Sandrich cut out Ginger singing. Fred, Berlin, and Berman did not want to get in a fight with him over this, but they knew this was a bad decision, so Fred declared he hated the song, and they just had to comply. Maybe they never told Ginger because when, not if, she exploded at Sandrich, she would not spill the beans. And the explosion was soon to occur in this movie. Ginger loves clothing. In her biography, she devotes pages and pages to describing the gorgeous dresses she wears in the movies. She cared about the color, even though the movies were in black and white. Ginger was a fashion trendsetter, both for clothing and hairstyles. She stated ostrich feather sales skyrocketed after Top Hat. She later had her own clothing line with JCPenney. Costume designer Bernard Newman had created the dresses for Roberta, and was Ginger's favorite designer, and worked with Ginger in future movies. Ginger said unlike a lot of designers, Bernie was open to suggestions. Ginger described the dress she wanted for the cheek-to-cheek dance, so she was deeply invested in this unusual dress. They had procedures to approve dresses beforehand, and the image had been presented, but the dress was late and not actually seen until the day of the shoot. It fell through the cracks. Fred and Ginger's account of the feather dress episode is in some ways very different from each other. As always, Fred totally skips the contentious points, but remembers the laughter afterwards. Ginger's version highlights the contention and her ultimate victory and vindication. When the dress arrived, Sandrich immediately came to Ginger's dressing room. Ginger believes this was at Fred's insistence. He told Ginger he wanted her to wear the dress she wore in the Gay Divorcee. This is nuts. Top Hat had a $609,000 budget in 1935. Millions today. Yet Ginger is going to rewear an old dress? Ginger called Mommy. Leela Rogers was a stage mother like none I have ever heard of, because she was accomplished in her own right, a scriptwriter for Hollywood, walked away from that when she got married and became a newspaper critic, and then walked away from that and her marriage to be her daughter's manager, guiding Ginger to her incredible success. When Ginger signed with RKO, Leela also got a job, running a training studio for the young actors. This was not a no-show job. Producers, directors, and talent scouts, some from as far away as New York, would attend the plays Leela produced to see what new young star they could find. Other studios sent their talent there for training. Leela was an influential force in her own right. Like Fred, Ginger likes to portray herself as tough. So many facts, as told by Ginger, do not bear that out. Yes, she did fight the studios over pay and treatment of actresses. She was an early feminist force, but it seems she stood behind Leela, who carried the fight. Lucy wrote Ginger was a sunny, cheerful person, friendly and approachable as a puppy. Ginger writes how she had others fight her fights, and by others, she mostly means Leela. So Leela, already at the studio, rushed over to defend Ginger. Ginger wrote, "My 105 pounds couldn't have gotten me through the first round without her." I found this reference to size funny. People did refer to Ginger as little at 5'4", 105 pounds, but Leela was even smaller. It's not the size of the dog, it's the fight in the dog. Ginger must have seen Leela as a giant. It was Ginger and Leela facing 10 studio executives plus Sandrich. They had brought down the Gay Divorcee dress, and it was soiled and stretched. Sandrich now suggested any other used dress. Leela blew up. "Why don't you just get another girl?" Leela grabbed Ginger's hand, and they stormed out of the studio. An assistant director ran after them, saying Sandrich suggested they do one rehearsal with the feather dress. Faced with possibly losing one of their top stars, they put their misogynistic games aside. Leela won the day for Ginger. This victory would have been sweeter, though, if the damn dress didn't fall apart, according to Fred and others. Ginger downplays this. She said she and Fred were both tense as they started dancing. Some of the feathers did flutter and annoy Fred. He muttered to himself as he plucked the feathers off his tailcoat. Fred's version starts here, and he tells a much different story, a funny version, and maybe like many good stories, it exaggerates a bit. Fred wrote, as they started to dance, feathers started to fly as if a chicken had been attacked by a coyote. I never saw so many feathers in my life. It was like a snowstorm. They were floating around like millions of moths. I had feathers in my eyes, my ears, my mouth, all over the front of my suit. Fred wrote that take after take was stopped by the blizzard of feathers and of furious efforts to shake out the dress. It got to be funny after a while. The news went all over the lot that there was a blizzard on the Top Hat set. The sightseers poured in on us. Fred's lifelong friend, David Diven, wrote he and Phyllis were watching all this. Phyllis said they had to leave. Fred would be very embarrassed.
That's the one that we had so much trouble with her dress. The dress was beautiful, but it was all very fine ostrich feathers. They moved beautifully. Fred would throw her up in the air, and then she'd fall on the back again, Ginger. And then through the step, feathers would sort of drift up and fall in the face or fall in front of the camera and say, well, all right, take it again. And Fred was about to lose his mind. He said, this damn dress.
I had to be a little bit interested in what the women had, if I could get a hold of it. And sometimes you get a hold of the back of it or something, and I didn't want something that didn't work right. There were feathers in one thing that used to fall off a lot. That caused a lot of trouble.
He found that the feathers were getting all over his tuxedo, and you couldn't see them. I mean, I dare you to see it if you run the film. What you can see is the feathers coming off as I dance. You see them float, but you don't see them on his clothes. But he saw them on his clothes, and he was furious. He didn't want his tuxedo. And I guess I couldn't blame him, but I had designed the dress, and I was going to wear it, and I did.
Fred said it finally settled down, and at the end of the shoot, Fred and Pan sang a parody to Ginger to the tune of Cheek to Cheek. Fred wrote the rushes the next day were good, and very few of the feathers could be seen. Ginger remembers it differently. After the first take, Fred's attitude was still cool and aloof, but Mark was not taking his losing with any grace. During the rushes the next day, nobody spoke to Ginger or acknowledged her presence. It continued on the set, Fred cool and aloof, Mark stiff and businesslike. Only now did their stories come together. 4 days later, Ginger received a gift from Fred, a gold feather for her charm bracelet. The note said, "Dear Feathers, I love you, Fred." Fred wrote, "We laughed about that episode for weeks afterward. It was sort of a running gag with Ginger and me. I used to call her Feathers." Years later, in Easter Parade, Fred would do a comedy routine with Judy Garland, wearing a shedding feathered gown. I'm a huge fan of Ginger, but I have to admit some of the clothing, and, even worse, hairstyles she wore, baffle me. If I had been standing there with Fred when the dress first appeared, I also would have been shocked. What the hell is that thing? Like Fred, I could not have seen what Ginger did, how the way it flowed as they danced would be so beautiful, and enhance the scene. Ginger was right. This fight was so serious, regardless of Fred's downplaying it, because it brought into conflict their two great passions, and also brought to the forefront Ginger's simmering frustration with how she was being treated. To Fred, all that mattered was the dance. He obviously did not see how effective it would be, only how it would harm the scene. To Ginger, it was more than even the dress. She had been granted the right to choose her own dresses as an important contributor to these movies, and now there was no way they were taking this away from her. Ginger comments with pride on how this or that idea was hers, like the end of "Isn't it a lovely day to be caught in the rain?" Or more importantly, the lifts at the end of "The Yam" and dancing in roller skates to "Let's call the whole thing off." Fred claims everything had to be his way regarding the dance, but the truth was he let Ginger contribute often. Ginger said his reaction was always no at first, but then he would agree. I can see her beaming with pride that she was treated as more than just a chorus girl. They got through this, their worst fight, and resumed their friendship. You gotta know by now Ginger melted when she got that charm from her Fred. Sandwich, on the other hand, just continued to seethe. Sometimes their behavior towards each other is, well, odd. In 1981, Ginger's forward was added to Fred's bio. It starts off like many forwards, reminiscing about some event, but then, I kid you not, Ginger starts an argument with Fred. She complains about Fred's section in the book having a little fun about Ginger refusing the eventual great movie of hers, Bachelor Mother. Fred wrote she never did agree she was wrong, and Ginger demanded she did. Then she adds, "Didn't the feather dress turn out superbly, contrary to your on-the-set evaluation when I first wore it?" And Fred allowed this to be the forward for his book. I still get a chuckle out of this. We already heard about Fred's temper, breaking 12 of 13 canes shooting Top Hat, White Tie, and Tails. Ginger had never seen his temper until the end of Top Hat. Sandwich insisted on adding an impromptu dance to the end, which upset Fred and Ginger without planning or practice. On the second pivot, Fred's top hat fell off. Fred stopped in his tracks, his hands flew up into the air, and his head shook. No, no, no. Fred walked to the wall of the set and kicked it. 5 direct hits. Fred had never displayed his temper to us before. I stared at him unbelievingly until I saw what his tantrum was all about. He had failed to put on his toupee before shooting. Fred was just humiliated. He was never seen without his toupee, but he was wearing the hat, and pissed at the last-minute addition. I must add, if Ginger never saw Fred's temper till the end of the 4th movie, then it must not have happened very often. Good to know he was not losing his marbles on a regular basis. Both events happened in Top Hat. Maybe it was all getting to him. Phyllis, Ginger, Sandwich, all these extraneous conflicts. This whole thing was a warrior's worst nightmare. Ginger was on the radio a great deal, but not singing, performing roles in radio adaptations of movies. She did this throughout the years. I have not found a comprehensive source of Billboard Top 100 rankings before the mid-1950s, and I do not find Ginger once on any of my earlier lists. In my opinion, Ginger's voice was fine for movies, especially with how she was so cute and animated while singing. But in many songs, it was not quite radio or record quality. Play a Ginger singing scene with your eyes closed, just listening, and you might agree. Some fans get upset with me about this opinion. Here, I believe, is proof Ginger shared the same concerns. After Top Hat, she contracted with Decca to record an album of Top Hat songs, but insisted on adding a clause she could cancel the deal afterwards. She was so unsatisfied with how it came out, she did cancel it, but Decca released it in England under another label anyway. Now what do our stars and RKO management do after the stunning success of Top Hat? After reaching these amazing heights, can they match it, even exceed it, or will their popularity fade? Watch the next episode to find out. Please like and subscribe.